Hello, everyone, and welcome to, as always lately, a very special episode of Hotline League. It's going to be very unusual, as they seem to continue to be. First off, shout out to Alienware for sponsoring this episode. Next, let me introduce my constant co-host, Mark Zimmerman. How's it going, Mark? You got a backwards baseball cap on.
Going great. Yeah, because I was about to say it's a team hat, and I was going to make a joke that I have it on backwards because I don't support the teams right now. But then I realized I'm like wearing both Cloud9 pants and a Cloud9 shirt, so that shows my backbone.
You have to hide.
I got a strong spine for these kinds of things.
The players will walk out, but Mark won't refuse to wear the free merch he's been gifted by the teams.
I'm playing. Like I said, we were joking about earlier in the day. Like I'm any team needs a unranked.
Well, here you go, Phil. This is your first. You have to convince Mark not to scab.
I think you guys get better day rates than I do, maybe. So like I should just be a player for a day.
I would love to have a conversation with you about the importance of solidarity and worker actions. You may get contacted. I don't know if Travis wants to break that bit of news today.
No, I will. I will break it here in a second.
We can save that. I didn't know if you wanted to
let me get my tweet out first then before we break it.
Wanted to see if a Pokemon would break it. But well, here first let me introduce Phil, who is here from the Players Association, the head of the Players Association. We did an interview not too long ago, and you've been on the show previously, but welcome to the show, Phil. I think Mark and I are both very frustrated with you because we had planned to honor the holiday and do Hotline League tomorrow. But because you successfully herded 52 cats into voting a certain way, you've now made it so we have to work tonight. So thanks a lot, Phil.
At least it wasn't Labor Day. I mean, then I would really be a hypocrite.
I made that joke earlier, and I was about like, oh, wouldn't it be ironic if it was Labor Day instead of Memorial Day? That and you've taken. All right, Phil. Let's
stole another thing from you today.
Let's do a quick little thank you. Let's do a quick little spiel. What is your role at the PA for those that have not been paying attention, and what do you do in relation to all this stuff?
Yeah, I'm the executive director of the Players Association. So the players hire me to be their advocate and their voice in the room with Riot and with teams, and to help advise them on situations just like this that we're in.
Yeah, well, probably nothing as much as you're supposed to advise them on stuff like this, but probably this is new territory for you.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a place of progressive politics. I haven't worked on directly labor side before, broader political campaigns and things, but I'm definitely familiar with it. But there's a lot of research going on behind the scenes for me and everyone else in these weeks because there's a lot of new questions for a lot of people. It's a scary but exciting time too. Worker actions are a really important part of the American story, and we need more of them in this country, not less. And you hate to have to get to a point where it requires everyone standing up to say or do something and get change made, but here we are.
Well, let's set a little bit of context. First off, if all you do is you tune into Hotline League once a week when it gets uploaded Tuesday mornings, and then you show up and watch the LCS whenever it's scheduled, boy, have I got some news for you. Actually, you should probably go watch a video that I posted today talking about how the LCS Players Association has voted for a walkout on Thursday. Riot has since reportedly, and I've heard, and Evie has heard, and it seems like it's just out there now, that Riot is actively enforcing the teams to play on Thursday as if everything is normal, and they are going to they're extending the deadline for teams to sign subs to ensure that they can do this. And I don't think this news has broken yet, but I've heard from multiple sources within an hour of the show starting that Riot is officially suspending the requirements to play in the LCS. So now you can be of any rank and you can play from anywhere. You can play from home even on Thursday if you would like to be a pro player. So you, I, Mark, Phil, we're all eligible to compete in the LCS at this time.
Let me tell you, I saw I saw Bronze 3 stack that spoke out in solidarity, saying they wouldn't consider being scabs, and they might be regretting that now. Like, there's a good work opportunity for those Bronze 3s.
Let me tell you, you guys are thinking far too locally. Now that the thing's a ball, I'm ready to sign some European ERL talent.
Yeah, I was going to make the joke about this is the greatest thing to happen for North American talent of all time. Is now everyone in North America is eligible.
Wrong. What's the ping to Korea?
Are the import rules suspended? What else are you breaking?
That's actually a really good question.
Import rules? You said anyone. Anyone with a pulse can now play.
Yeah, I don't know. I should be clear here. I don't know the exact details, but I've just heard that like you should not necessarily expect all of the players that are going to be playing to be, what was it before, D3 or something? I forget.
I think it used to be D3. I think it actually got bumped up to D1 recently. And I think, anyways, point is now that like if the import rules still stand, there's like 2 Korean players in like the challenger scene who can, play LCS for a day on 200 ping for fun.
This year is just fucking wild. I can't like every hour or so some crazy new development comes about this, and I've
been trying to make a blame game topic on this since like the vote passed 2.5 weeks ago. And like,
you mean the Riot,
the overall North American thing. It's like by the time I settle on one thing, it's like, oh, TSM is going to China or wherever, like, great. Well, I guess I'll like get my thoughts together there and see what some of the fallout is before I make that video. Oh shit! All right, players are walking out. All right, it's just like one day. I swear to God, this video will come out. I promise, but it's just been delayed over and over and over.
Mark is just the blame game's just going to be. All right, it's all dead. The dust is settled. Who can I fucking blame for all of this?
It's going to be actually end up like go full circle. It's going to be a 10-second video, and I'll be like, "Fuck this shit," and that's it.
It's good content.
Yeah.
Can I bring something up related to this piece of breaking news?
Yes.
We're having fun, but in all seriousness, for a moment, let's highlight. We've been reaching out to Riot for a significant period of time about this, and this decision that got us here in the first place, removing the requirement, pulling the rug on us, lying to players about the fact that they were going to do it, all those things, making up rules as they go after the decision because they didn't have a plan in place, literally just, day by day getting messages from people telling me, well, we're trying to figure out how to make a solution for this because we didn't think about it. Like, they've changed the rules 3, 4, 7, 20 times in the last 2 weeks to try and do everything except talk to us about the mistake that they made. And, I spent 2 years doing this with Riot under the assumption that they are a giant company that moves very slowly and that it takes a long time to make any movement, and, had made my peace with that. And now I have come to understand that it is an enormous lie and that Riot is capable of moving mountains very quickly and changing long-standing rules in an instant if it suits whatever they want. And whatever it wants to be right now appears to be messing with players and like harming the future of the league. Like, how is their solution to this not to say, teams, you don't have to fill players and we'll have a conversation and lower the temperature, and if the walkout happens, it happens and we shut down broadcast? How is that not the decision? How is the decision we're going to take away the most basic part of our competitive ecosystem, building sports, and we're going to let you put out 5 people who have never played League of Legends on stage just to say we filled out the day? Like, it's absurd. And, I'm asking Riot today, I've asked them on email and here, remove the requirement. You've removed everything else, but remove the requirement to teams to field a roster at the start of the season. Like, lower the temperature. We got teams that are harassing players and coercing them not to, to disclose the way they voted and if they're going to walk out, and threatening them. And those are very serious things, criminal behavior. And it is because Riot is putting pressure on these teams to sign players and to make their players play. And we need to, please, Riot, if you're listening, stop. Let's lower the temperature. Let's talk and let's find a solution, because you can make decisions quickly. We can see that. So, sorry. Soapbox off.
No. I think Travis and I have been mostly laughing through the pain today. If you caught our earlier stream, we were just unhinged. And I feel like, it is important to come back down to earth and talk about some of this stuff. I have 2 questions for you, I guess, to start, Phil. And you said,
well, and here, sorry, really quickly, Mark, just because we've kind of jumped ahead, I want to lay out what the show is going to be like tonight. So, one, we have Phil on. He's going to be on for about an hour, maybe a little bit more. Then we have long-standing member of the Hotline League, talent pool who pops up every now and then. Kelby May coming on, a friend of Phil's
The roster.
as well. And so maybe we'll have
Also
them on
on
both
mushrooms.
for a little bit. And then and we are going to take some calls. So I think Mark and I can talk for the next, I don't know, 15 or so minutes to Phil, and then I do want to make sure we get some calls and you all have some time to ask Phil some questions about everything. So and Phil, I know you're, you know, I'm sure you can't just pop in here and, despite everything you just said, rag on Riot the entire time. So are there specific things that you are looking to clarify with the community, or any like calls or any discussion that you're looking to have with the community?
Yeah, we are planning to talk to Riot tomorrow. We're hopeful that something meaningful comes of that. It's a really important conversation. And, you know, when we made the vote, I want to say, like, again, first and foremost, the players want to play. Like, nobody wants to be walking out. These guys love playing League, and they love competing, and they want to lift trophies, and they want to focus on Summer Split, and they've been training hard to prepare for it. This is the last thing we want to do. So it speaks volumes that they're working to do it. And we have every intention and desire to be reasonable and find a path forward. The reason why we're in this place is because we were excluded from the process, lied to, and rug pulled in the most callous way that harmed a lot of jobs and the future of the league. Like, it's that simple. We're here to talk about how we can like heal those wounds and set up the league for success in the future. It's that simple. And yeah, we look to Riot, especially tomorrow, to help do that. I know we'll probably there's some questions, and maybe we'll double back for folks who join later, and we'll face it again. But you know, our intention when we were planning the vote was always to disclose information about when and where and how long the walkout would be, because of the escalations by Riot of requiring teams to field rosters and forcing them to pursue scabs at all costs. We have made the decision that we have to obfuscate around that information. Feel it's necessary. We cannot make it any easier for teams in Riot to try and field scabs. It's an unfortunate thing, and I've talked to teams. I say I understand the position you've been put in, and it is not fun for me to constantly be talking to people you're trying to sign because of the situation you're in to fill these roster slots. But I'm going to keep telling every one of them not to sign, and they're going to listen because they give a shit and they know that it's important, and their players are talking to each other right now and really care about this issue. So we're not going to be able to say some exact details. I hope everyone will understand that it is an important part of our ability to, you know, protect the integrity of the walkout.
So that answers one of the two questions I was about to ask before Travis handed it over. The other one I was going to ask was, you talked about like wanting Riot to come to the table. When's the last time you have like had a proper conversation? I assume there's been like maybe some emails, like you don't have to say what was discussed, but like what has the communication been basically since like right before the walkout vote till now? I mean, it's been not even 24 hours yet, you know, so like obviously very fast timeline, and it's a holiday, so it's like kind of weird to know. But it sounds like decisions are still, like, based off what Travis said, it sounds like that wasn't like that was a decision made today. So clearly people are working on this problem on the Riot side. So
Yeah, I think that, you know, the information, the decisions are still being made is disappointing to us. You know, our understanding is that Riot leadership was by and large on vacation last week following MSI, which is a pretty typical thing for them. And there's a holiday today, so a bunch of them have not been in the office, and that's a lot of the communication we got. We've had an email with them on Friday before we came to the vote, where they at that time asked to meet, and we asked to meet as, you know, in the coming weeks. We asked to meet as soon as possible, and we're able to, you know, now work towards the time. But our hope would have been to talk over the weekend or Monday, today, of course, you know, as opposed to Tuesday. The more time we have to talk, the more time there is to try and find a solution that works. You know, these aren't easy. You know, well, we think there are some wise solutions. We understand that they're not easy conversations. So, you know, having the conversation on Tuesday, I think, is a disappointment to us out of the gate. It's worrisome to us that it doesn't provide a seriousness on their part to come with a plan that that will actually be tenable to everyone. And of course, the actions behind the scenes, pressuring teams to field rosters, only raises our concerns that Riot's not interested in a genuine conversation about how to engage players on improving the scene. So those are, I think, our biggest concerns. But primarily, it's been a conversation Friday and then today about finding time to talk tomorrow. So that's been most of it. There have been some other side conversations, but I won't expose any of those conversations that anyone on their side is given in good faith. So, our outreach to them has been, hey, like, we don't want, and throughout the entire process has been, we don't want to do this. We want to work with you. We want to be collaborative. We want to do the things that y'all said you were going to do in the video Travis filmed many, many years ago that he was talking about with Riot and team owners, talking about having voting and everyone having a say in decisions made that affect NA. That's what we want. We just want it to be honored, and and we want our part of the conversation to matter. So, it's been disappointing, but we're hopeful, and we maintain hope for Tuesday, and we hope that Riot will do some things in good faith to lower the temperature right now.
And when you say Tuesday, you mean tomorrow, as we're recording this Monday night. Yeah.
Yep.
Just because sometimes people listen to the podcast, I want to make sure the timelines are not confusing. Mark, I don't know if you had other questions or if that answers it.
No, I mean,
I have another.
The other one was obviously like, is it a walkout or a strike or that kind of stuff? But like he kind of already addressed that, so
I think that's still helpful for the audience, probably.
Yeah, there's walkout, there's lockout, there's strike. I think a lot of people are kind of confused about what's happening.
Yeah, walkout, lockout, strike. Three separate things. A walkout and a strike. It's like a square rectangle situation. All strikes are walkouts basically, but not all walkouts are strikes. We are not unionized. Obviously a topic of conversation has been had numerous times around the scene, but players are not unionized. Walkouts are a protected collective action of employees in the United States. You've seen them in non-unionized settings at Riot, at Activision Blizzard recently, if you're following gaming, so along with all sorts of other workplaces. So a walkout is typically a demonstration of employees to deny labor in order to make a statement about something unfair in the workplace. It's the most powerful action that any employee has, and to act collectively is legally protected by the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, federal body that oversees labor actions in the U.S. So they oversee it, they set the rules, and it is protected in spite of not being unionized. And it's important, employees. If you're all an employee somewhere, and if you're in a workplace where something is going wrong, the most powerful thing you can do is to say, "This is wrong. I will not work unless you do something about it." So that's our plan: is to walk out. Strikes tend to be indefinite in a unionized setting, specifically because they are around a lack of a collectively bargained agreement. Typically, most unionization contracts will say we agree not to strike for X period of time, and the X period of time is at the end of a labor agreement. And then when the labor agreement ends and you don't have a new deal in place, oftentimes the employees will strike in order to negotiate the new deal, and no one will work until the new deal is in place.
So a deadline essentially on forcing a deal to be done.
Exactly. A lockout is the opposite of that. It would be a case where the employer feels like they're in a worse position and they want to prevent the employees from coming to work until a new deal is in place in order to improve their conditions or their situation, because they feel the previous deal was not beneficial to them. So you do see this a lot in traditional sports as well, but those are kind of the nuances there. We are a walkout. We are not a strike. It's not a lockout of the owners keeping us out.
Very good. I think that's very helpful. I think I want to get to calls here in a second. Mark, do you want to explain, because we probably have a lot of people we don't normally have, how the call system works, or have you already been pulling something?
Yes. No, I haven't. I was listening, and so if people don't know, this is a live call-in show. You can actually get on here and talk to Phil yourself. Go ahead and join up the Discord link that I just spammed in Twitch chat. When you get there, go ahead and join pleb calls or pleb calls to voice channels. Mute your microphone when you're in there so you're not annoying other people who are still listening to the show. And then in the pleb topics text channel up above, that is where you're going to write it, whatever question you have or idea that you want to propose, these kinds of things. I'll be in there looking for topics. People feel free to use like emotes on topics that you like or don't like, so that way I can say this one's very supported or this one's very hated, and I can pull either one of those. It makes it a little easier for me. And then we'll pull whoever that is into the waiting room where they'll hang out until it's their turn to come on air and talk, do a quick mic check in the waiting room, make sure you're good to go, and then pull you on air to be discussing the situation.
And if you are a sub, first off, thank you for being a sub. Be sure to sync your Discord with your Twitch so that you can join the subtopics chat. And you can put your take there. And we try to pull from both of those chats. Putting into subtopics does not mean that you're guaranteed, but it does move a little slower. So it might be a little easier for you to get caught there if you are putting it into subtopics. So while Mark is grabbing folks and putting them in the waiting room, Phil, I'm very curious because we've talked a lot about like the specific, voting process and all this different stuff. What have the last couple of weeks been like for you? Like, I don't know if you're working like 16-hour days. I don't know if it's, you're talking to all sorts of legal counsel. Like, what is it like behind the scenes for you as somebody running this stuff and trying to make it go through?
It's been a hellish time for sure. Nothing compared to our players who lost their jobs though. Like, I've got a job and like I'm working my ass off to do it right for players, but that's what kind of keeps me pushing, is knowing that a lot of people that care and I care about are in a hard situation because of what was done, and that motivates me every day. But yeah, they're long days, but that's part of the job. This work can oftentimes be ebbs and flows. You kind of think of it like a roller coaster with crises coming several times a year. They're going to demand every hour. My partner Tiffany is very kind and understanding that when these things happen, I just disappear for a couple weeks, and she just drops grilled cheeses on my desk and says, "See you in bed." So, it has been crazy though. I've had to rearrange my 3 monitor setup halfway through because I started to have serious neck pain from constantly looking to my left monitor where my Discord messenger is, because I was craning my neck, just sending an insane amount of messages every day. It's a lot of organizing though. Like that's what labor is. It's organizing, it's talking to people. So in the last 2 weeks, we've tried to talk to everybody we can, first at Riot to try and prevent this action in the first place. And anyone who might listen or have influence there. We talked to our board members who are incredibly engaged and supportive and committing their time to help advise on how to communicate potential routes for solutions and just work that can be done, connecting us to connecting to various news outlets, helping to build stories, helping to reach out to labor lawyers, the NLRB, the California Labor Commission, everything in between. So days are filled with all those conversations and outreach. And in the last week, we had many conversations among leadership prior to the vote from leadership to go for the walkout vote, talking with each of them about what it means and educating them. That was the first part. We have to educate the leadership to have them understand the stakes when they decide whether or not the vote would happen in the first place. And I give a ton of credit to them because we spent more than 2 hours on a call talking about what would the asks be and did a walkout vote make sense? And I can tell you with all honesty that I applaud their courage, because there's only 5 of them, and for them to put out into the world that we were going to go for this walkout vote, we had zero certainty when that vote went through that we were going to come to today and have players unified around this. It was a huge task and tall order. And I think the community, when we called for it, brought up many of the concerns that certainly went through our minds as well. Are international players going to care as much? Are players who are superstars going to care about the NACL? Are people at the bottom going to be willing to put their necks on the line if they're potentially going to get replaced by a giant pool of players that became available as free agents all of a sudden? There's a lot of risks and concerns there. And so in the days leading up to the vote, since we've announced we were going for it, it was just educate. I took every call with every player I could. All of our reps, we have a rep on every team, and they all stepped up to help us get conversations after team scrims. They get off the clock after going from 12 to 8 oftentimes, and came and met with me and asked questions for, in some cases, half hour, 45 minutes, close to an hour after the call, asked to do one-on-ones. I was talking with people on teams, or our players on teams, from 8 o'clock till 10 or 11 almost every single night, and then waking up to messages in the morning too to catch. So we ended up meeting with 8 full teams, and the other 2 we met and had long conversations with their reps who were conveying the information to the other teams as well. There's a lot of work, and I again give all credit to our players who were the ones who put in the work and came ready to listen and learn, and eventually put themselves on the line by voting to do this.
I really appreciate the behind the scenes look, because it's I think a lot of people just see like the tweets go out and then they don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, so I do appreciate it. We do have our first caller here, Artichoke. Artichoke, where are you calling from?
Hi, can you hear me? I'm calling from Ontario, Canada.
Ontario, Canada. Good to talk to you. What do you want to talk about on the show?
Wait, and what's your rank?
I haven't played ranked this season.
That's okay. You're still eligible
That's fine
to
by
play.
us.
You're still
Yeah,
eligible.
that's right. That's right. So
Okay. Don't be a scab,
my
please.
take, and this is a bit, this is going to be controversial, is I think the Players Association is being unreasonable and is harmful in their demands.
Damn,
And
son.
now I want to say that, I'm putting this out there because I want to hear your perspective on this. And hopefully you can come up with some, good responses.
I didn't
And
know
I
that
also
Riot
wanna
had
say
an
that
office in Ontario.
Sorry?
I said I didn't know Riot had an office in Ontario. Sorry,
That's
continue.
right.
Artichoke, go ahead.
Yeah, no. But I also think that the Riot and the orgs have handled this poorly, right? So this is not
Nice.
so. But I want to say there's sort of 5 points, and I think we can hopefully agree on.
Maybe
these
you
5
could
points, and
condense the
maybe-
5 points. Or you're talking about LCS or the PA's 5 points.
Well, I guess I'll start with saying that I think there's something very foundational that we should start with, and that's that labor action is not necessarily good, right? And I think if we have this idea
Whoa.
that
We already disagree on 1 point.
well, I think there's the idea that employees are the little guy, so we naturally root for them, and Riot is the giant monolith.
Accurate.
But I think we've seen examples of unions that have been harmful, and the police union protecting police officers that have done horrible things. I think that's one extreme example we can all agree with. Right?
Damn, you got me there.
So, and I think if we agree on that, we can agree that unions can do harmful things. Unions can do a lot of good things, right? And this could be an example where we need it. But unions, we have to judge each action on its own, not just say, oh, union's good, Riot or...
Okay. Speed up a little. Sorry, Artichoke. We only have Phil for 30 other minutes, so I want to make sure we get a bunch of callers.
I want to say, second point is, I think we all agree LCS has been unsustainable, right? It's not bringing enough money to sustain its operations. It's more of a marketing budget as opposed to a profit center.
I don't get to see the numbers, so I can't speak to it. They don't tell me
if I'm happy to be proven wrong if this is not the case, okay? And the third thing is that I think Challenger has not been successful overall in developing players, right? And it's unclear. There have been big exceptions. It's unclear how much skill development it actually brings. We hear stories about lax scrims, cancel scrims, little coaching, not much attention. And I think the fourth thing, and this is something that I think Travis has talked about in the past, is that the players and the Players Association has not done enough to improve the situation in the ecosystem, right? And that, we haven't talked about there's not enough unionization. We've talked about potentially, maybe we could have a salary cap, but that requires a union. And, obviously there are, as you said, Travis, big obstacles to doing unions, right?
Get to point 5. You got one more.
And point 5 is I think the Players Association, the 5 demands are unreasonable. Now, we could argue about the specifics, but it's asking for probably $5 million a year, as well as, the first point, which is having relegations, which I don't even know if it's legally possible, right? So I think it's one of those situations where had there been, more reasonable demands and more work done to improve the situation and improve the ecosystem, I think there would be a lot more credibility and I would see this a lot more favorably. But the combination of these things means that I have kind of a more negative view towards the actions that have been done.
So I know a lot of people are like, why the fuck is this a call at the beginning? Because it's not a completely one-off take. As someone who has posted on Twitter a fair amount about this kind of stuff, I get plenty of not pro player sentiments in my replies when I, sometimes take the pro player side. So it's not like this is a one-off guy. And so I think it's good to kind of address the people who have these kinds of thoughts, and hopefully Phil can provide great reasoning. Some people are also the two other things I'll throw in quick is one, a lot of people are also why are we getting mad at Riot when it's the teams who killed it or whatever? Obviously Riot's the governing body, and you can address that too, hopefully Phil. And then 3, on the point of these were the 5 demands. Maybe you can speak to is it a situation where it's give us exactly these 5 and we won't come back until you do that, or this is what we want, let's negotiate and figure it out, and players will return to play or whatever, assuming that there's good faith progress being made on them.
Okay.
So yeah, big question.
Has Travis contained all the questions from Artichoke and Mark combined? That I'm struggling to.
Yeah, please report the 8
I need someone to tell me where to start.
So.
All right, so I'll start with this. What do you think about the idea that the actions that you're having are potentially harmful to the overall ecosystem and not worth the battle?
The action of a walkout.
the action of a walkout and the potential, damage that this is causing to the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that it is no secret here or anywhere that everyone has been talking about esports winter, esports, esports recession, esports recorrection, or whatever you would like to describe it as. Obviously there's a conversation that needs to be had about what the right model is for esports. Like, I love esports, and I think it really sucks that we're in a position where we spend more time talking about the economics around the scene and less about the games that are being played. Like, it's just shit. And I think to us, to get to the first point of our bullets, we brought up promotion relegation because we believe it's a better model for esports. I think the original sin of the LCS is franchising. I do not blame the teams for wanting to be franchised. I do not hold a grudge against them for being here, having paid, and wanting to maintain those spots. I think that those are all like understandable and reasonable positions for those people to be in. But I think that my closely held belief is that franchising, it limits the free market movement. If you want to get into capitalism, I saw that in chat a couple times, but the ability for teams to move up and down based on merit is good. I don't think North American franchising is strong. I love basketball, and every year I watch a third of the teams tank for the first overall pick because it's a closed loop ecosystem and there are incentives to be bad. And anytime that you have a guarantee of revenue, regardless of your performance, it creates adverse incentives that cause people to perform, that incentivize people to not try and compete to win. And in sports, what I want is for everyone to try and compete to win. So we think it is an important point to bring up. Our player leadership was adamant that we needed to talk about the need to look at what makes the ecosystem better. What would make the LCS the most enjoyable product for everyone, that's the most competitive, is a system where teams can earn their way in and out based on merit. We do call for Valorant style franchising, which is something that Riot has adapted. Our understanding was when they introduced the Valorant partner system, they didn't plan on doing the Ascension tournament necessarily. And the feedback from teams and fans after all the tier 2 teams dropped their players was that they were going to pick back up. They only were going to pick back up these teams because they added the Ascension tournament and organizations had a real capacity to get into the upper league. And that was the incentive. And we felt it's important to speak to that. Do we think that Riot's going to come in on Tuesday and be like, yeah, we're adding Valorant style promotion relegation? I would love for them to say that, frankly. I know it would not be it's not something that I think teams would be happy to hear, but these are the balances we make. But I do understand it's a big ask. So yeah, we're not saying we expect every single thing we ask for to happen overnight, but we are expecting to have a conversation about how do we actually make changes, meaningful changes, not just incremental changes or massive changes in the most recent case that take us in the wrong direction towards improving the scene. Our players are here to compete and play and represent North America for a long time. And we want to be a part of the conversation on how do we actually do that. So that's why point number one's there. You may see it as unreasonable, but we see it as absolutely necessary. We think you have to engage about the real problem and the real conversation. And we think this is absolutely core to it.
I believe another one of the caller's points was the Players Association has taken too long to get to this point. They didn't unionize because they wanted to reap the benefits of uncapped salary. And so now sort of just rewards, I guess, in some sense. Not to put words in an artichoke, and I've seen this argument before, right? Shout out to Rathacon, who loves to point out that on the beginning of Hotline League in 2017, he was like, these guys should unionize. And then they didn't unionize. So, Phil, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think that there's a few very good and real reasons. I'm not going to mince words with you on the first point, which is that unionization, and in sports traditionally, you can look at the number one reason for unionization was because players were massively underpaid. They didn't have a right to move between teams, and they could not negotiate with anyone outside of their own organization. The ability to operate in a free market and seek fair wages for your labor was not possible. That was the instigating factor for unionization in traditional sports. In League of Legends, our players do have a right to offer their talents to any of the teams available. And in part, traditional sports have helped pave the way for that. The ideas of reserve clauses and no free agency are anathema to esports, as even though there are many issue and restriction that we are constantly dealing with, those are not in place, which means that our players can go and seek fair compensation. The reality of the esports industry is that players are paid what the market will bear for them. And it is, I think, concerning to us that Riot has consistently, and other developers have consistently selected organizations who are clearly not making sound financial decisions overall. You can look at player salaries as a sign that they're spending outside of their means. But right now, we know for a fact that Riot gives teams more money than they spend on player salaries. Meanwhile, they're operating other games where they're seeing less return. They're operating large-scale facilities and large staffs that may or may not be justified. So we believe the players are paid what the market bears for them and are paid less than what is currently coming in revenue to teams from the developer. And in traditional sports, teams get a bigger share because they own and operate stadiums. They run tickets and gate. They have major local market operations and stake in the game. This is not the same case here. So we don't, that's been a big driver for a long time. And frankly, you have to feel pain in some serious way as a group of employees to move towards collective action. It's just a reality. And this is a wake-up call to players. Absolutely. I don't think it's unfair to say that seeing something like this happen, being left out of the conversation, being completely ignored, is the kind of action that causes players to have their labor minds awaken and realize that they need to work together because more actions will come following this if we don't stand up to further harm players and harm the league, because we just don't believe right now that the actions taken are in the best interests of the future of the league. Not just player salaries, but the very future of the LCS and North American League of Legends. So that's why they're out here fighting. And you can say we should have unionized yesterday, the year before, but I think, we've had all those conversations. We're professionals about it, and we've done what we believe is in the best interest of our players up to this point. So we're going to keep making those assessments, but it's not without consideration at all times.
I think.
Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was going to throw in 2 cents just in terms of other sentiments I've seen shared by people in the community, fans and stuff that I don't think reflect on the current situation. I know a lot of people are when this all started basically because teams killed Academy because they don't think it was worth their return on investment, and people have taken I think the situation has evolved quite a bit from that time period, both in terms of, as you've talked about, Phil, how Riot has included players in said conversations. The overall landscape and ecosystem that we're in now, it's moved on quite a bit past that. And I still see some people being yeah, Academy doesn't get viewers. If fans actually cared about this, they should have watched Academy. And I just don't think that's what the battle is really about, because it's ultimately about finding a long-term solution for the health of the ecosystem. And it might not have been Academy. And I'm not sure if 5,000 more people watched Academy that would have made that a profitable ecosystem or have solved the problems that we're facing today. So I think for a lot of fans, if you are on the side of thinking this is ridiculous or whatever, I think it is. It's complicated. There's a lot going on, and new news breaks every 2 minutes. But I really don't think it's an unreasonable situation for the pros to, based on everything that's been come out, put their flag in the ground on some of this stuff.
Two quick things. One, I want to make clear my last name is Gafford. According to Reddit, who clipped the earlier statement, it's Gadford. There is no D in the middle, just the D at the end. So
I'm sure that was an autocorrect. That is a phone. Someone's going quick, and it's an autocorrect. But no, I think I think it's just important because it's not about making the LCS immediately or the Academy profitable, or it wasn't a system that needed to get overhauled, because we talked before about how it probably was going to get overhauled in 3 more months. It's about the timing, the way it went down, the treatment of people, and saying no, you can't treat our ecosystem and our players this way. And that's really what the battle is about, not specifically was Academy a good system? Because we can debate that till we're blue in the face, but there's other things too that are being debated.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. I think I totally agree with you, Mark. I think you said it very, very well. We have always been in this. We've always agreed that Academy was not a good system. We believe it has been the best available system given the constraints of the space thus far. Creating franchising with a closed loop system massively de-incentivizes any third-party organization from participating in your space. It's an inherent problem of franchising. It's why the requirement got put in place in the first place, and you have to solve for that problem before you can get rid of it. And that's what we've been trying to do. The changes that have happened over the last 2 years, allowing for remote play, allowing the amateur orgs to begin to participate and renaming it NACL this year. All those things were things we worked on closely with Riot, and they talked to us about what their thinking was, and we were on board with, yeah, we need to try and work towards a world where the scene is sustainable without the requirement. And the issue, again, to your part of the issue, it's a lot about the manner in which this was done, but a part of it is we know that Riot knows this wasn't going to work, that the result was going to be everyone would leave and no one would come to replace them. The only actual organization that came to replace was Toast, and I appreciate that guy, and I appreciate their people, and they came in here because they care about the fact that players got harmed, and they wanted to try and give some jobs to players in the meantime. But I don't believe for a second that they think that the scene is set up for their investment to be worthwhile. So
Toast tweeted, I think like an hour or two ago, also his like expenses on his esports, and it's like lost him $1 million so far this year.
Okay, Artichoke, because this call is going to end up being 20 minutes long, I'm just going to let you pick one quick burst, and I'm going to give Phil one quick burst of reply. So pick one of your other many things on your list to throw out. Artichoke?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I really appreciate the responses, and I certainly understand your position. And I think that explanation, helps me understand it more. One thing I guess I've seen is that, is this just, the players wanting to spend other people's money? That's sort of what I've seen floating around, right? Are the Players Association, are the players willing to put in some skin in the game, and provide some of this funding for challengers if it's so highly valued?
I mean, this is the skin in the game. They're willing to put their jobs on the line, walking out to risk and support changing this system. And again, the ecosystem is set up in a way where teams, they've already been balancing it. We've been fighting to maintain this requirement, and by maintaining that requirement, every LCS player in fighting for that throughout the last 2 years and through today with their jobs on the line walking out has been saying, we want part of the money that goes into this ecosystem to go to the NACL. So it's absurd. It's like, I don't want to say absurd. Your question is valid and it's worth explaining and exploring. But the notion that players are not, LCS players are not committed to putting skin in the game. Every day they fight to keep those jobs is skin in the game. Those jobs right now, every LCS player could have said, whoa, the requirement's gone. Well, that's several million more dollars that might go into my pocket instead. And they've taken the opposite approach. They've said, we're willing to deny our labor, not get paid in order to try and protect these jobs. So, I think it's pretty clear that players have put skin in the game here. And I want to give a shout out to you because you are Artichoke. You are my long-winded homie, and I appreciate that we both just go on and on about everything. So I have no problem with your 12-point plan. I'm going to present a 15-point plan later tonight.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Artichoke. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Shout out to you guys, Travis and Mark, for the best podcast.
Yeah, very good. Catch you next time. All right. We're moving on to the next caller, rapidly trying to get through our calls tonight since we have so many.
One second.
Yeah.
Fuck the Celtics. Let's go Jimmy Butler, steal the deal. That was my last look. I peeked over one last time.
Are you co-viewing the
I'm no longer
Eastern
co-viewing.
Conference? Okay. Twitch chat agreeing with you. Okay. Mark should be back here any second. Some shout outs to Natty for he's here. HalfZippedJacket is here. HalfZippedJacket, where are you calling from?
Calling from Bayonne, New Jersey.
New Jersey. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I wanted to talk about how it's the responsibility of the LCS viewers to boycott watching games while a walkout is being staged.
So go ahead and explain your take on this a little bit, and then I am very curious what Phil's response will be.
Yeah, so essentially, I think that we already have action on one side from the players, but then I watched your video earlier about how Riot's trying to bring in scabs, and that shows that they're clearly not respecting the response that players have had. So I think in order for the community to, band together and sort of make Riot realize that this is a serious issue, they have to boycott viewing it, because the only reason they would bring in scabs is to have it so that they have the viewership for whatever advertisers are trying to place, right? And I think someone brought up a point earlier about how people are still going to watch because they want to see the shit show it's going to be. But it's sort of like, if you go to a restaurant and they're serving shit sandwiches, you don't go to the restaurant and like try to order one just to see it. You just like don't go to it at all and say like that restaurant is serving shit sandwiches. Stay away from it until they're not serving shit sandwiches.
So the problem,
Phil, is that something you'd put out from the LCSPA Twitter account as an analogy?
Shit sandwich analogy.
Don't go to the shit sandwich.
Phil is already constructing the graphic image that says like, "Don't go to the place serving shit sandwiches," and attributing the quote to
halfzippedjacket.
Say your name.
I'm a low key memer, and all of my board and people employees are constantly walking me off the ledge of just ruining a reputation with memes. So,
so I think. What is your opinion on this, Phil? Because there's other people who had similar takes in the Discord. Like a lot of people are wondering what's the best way to show solidarity with players as fans. Like is not watching the thing, because I do think there's a very high chance just the raw morbid curiosity of the human psyche is like going to be intrigued with like what's going to happen on Thursday and wanting to kind of be there for that moment, even though it's something that even ethically they might disagree with.
Yeah, I think my take here, and there's probably other people who we work with on this who might say that I should say otherwise, but my take is I don't really care who watches the broadcast. My job and my focus is 100% on ensuring that players are in solidarity and not participating. And so, if Riot wants to put a product on the stage that is a sham and an embarrassment to League of Legends and their promise from a month ago that they're building the future of sports. Well, if you're building the future of sports and you're putting people wearing brown paper bags to hide their identity and playing bronze level League on stage, then you're abandoning that notion. And I just don't see it as the right solution. If you want to go to war on this and you don't want to give up any ground and you don't want to concede that players have a right to say in the way the ecosystem works, that's your choice. But I genuinely can't understand a world in which putting the product quality that they're going to have available to them on stage makes any sense. We're going to do everything we can to make it impossible for them to put a product on stage. But at the end of the day, if they want to go hire 5 people from Craigslist, I'm sure I'm not going to be able to reach the 5 Craigslist people to keep them from getting on stage effectively. So, if you want to watch that, it'll be a disservice for themselves. Like they'll be doing a disservice to themselves by putting it on.
Have you considered hiring like thugs to like stand outside the entrance to the studio? I guess if they're calling in remotely.
Yeah. So Phil, there's this group called the Pinkertons, and they've previously been opposed to what you're doing. But if you get in early, maybe you could get them to work for you.
I heard about this. I heard they rebranded actually.
No, they didn't. Because this was a whole thing in
like
Magic
a
of the
consulting thing.
This is a Magic the Gathering thing recently where they sent Pinkertons to somebody's house. So I promise you, it's still a thing.
All right,
Travis has to find the way.
So give me a link. I'm happy to talk to anybody that will help us. I'm ready for the Pinkerton. If the Pinkertons want to swap sides and join the forces of labor instead of literally shooting the laborers, I'm here to welcome them. Like we'll take anybody in the fight who will help us in our cause.
I do think it's an interesting response, though, to say that to fans, like, hey, the product that we think the LCS is going to put out in a situation like this is poor enough that, like, that even if viewership spikes, it's the peak of the year, it's like it's still viewership that is, in one sense, probably like, quote unquote, hate watching, as well as like they're not going to be impressed by what they see. So it's still brand damage, even if the viewership is high for that. Like, just because number are big, it's not immediately good. It is your kind of perspective.
People have asked, I think it was one of the many questions from our friend Artichoke, potentially, can't recall them all, but about whether or not this was damaging, the league. Like what'll damage the league is if Riot chooses to do that, right? Like players walking out is not going to damage the league. In fact, I believe players making this decision, has resulted in player reputations improving more so than they have, in years in League of Legends. And like, if Riot wants to improve the reputation and the way people view the league, they would come talk to us and they would work with us and we would all help come together on something we could be on board with. And like in any good program, you'd have all your collaborators like bought into a solution, and then we could go out and we could actually work on it and do it and excite fans. But like what they're going to do is not going to excite fans. It's going to lead to an endless array of memes that degrade the faith in the LCS.
That's my take too. Is like this is not a situation where you're boycotting like a television program. You know, the viewer experience is no longer omnidirectional, right? Like I think people tuning in to this very goofy situation, quite frankly, the more people that tune in, in some sense, the more damaging it is to the league, because you are gonna like there's so much brand damage done when people tune in for day one, opening day of the LCS, and they're running bronze players potentially, or you know, whoever, and it's just like a circus. Like in my mind, that is, I can't imagine what sponsors are going to think about this stuff, right? Like if I don't think a sponsor is going to be like, boy golly gee, you sure got 300,000 concurrents, that seems pretty great. Instead, I think they're going to be like, okay, so you had a lot of viewers watching the world's most embarrassing thing, you know, like
Yeah,
not to sidetrack too much. I still don't understand the decisions that they're making. I feel like everything here is so nonsensical and so illogical. I don't get it.
Yeah, I was going to chime in on the sponsorship point. Like, I don't interface directly with sponsors or work on like the biz dev team or anything, but I know that like sometimes, as someone who is pretty out there in terms of the content they'll put out, like I will get a flag and be like, "Hey, sponsors didn't love this that you did," you know?
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, and Travis at times will have that same conversation with me about like, "Hey, during the sponsor reads, can you not do this?" You know, and so like I am aware. I'm pretty certain of the fact that like this is something that, you know, they're going to see. They probably already are aware of it, and you know, like they can't be happy. So there is like legitimate, you know, brand damage. Concern. That's why I tweeted that last night as well. Is like I know that like this does not reflect well, and so like I agree, kind of Travis. I'm like, really, this is like the best foot forward as an ecosystem, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, Travis, if you watch you're a Magic player, so the main reason I'm sort of like taking this on is, you remember Magic 30, how all the players knew it was a terrible, terrible mistake, and there was a bunch of press about it, and then when the sale actually happened, they pulled it down saying like, "Oh, the sale has concluded. Thank you for joining us." Right? Like, I think a boycott would sort of push right in that direction, where they're like, "Oh, the broadcast has been canceled."
Yeah,
like,
I mean, even if that's potentially the case, one, I don't think they have lost all sorts of, nothing they're doing is logical at this point in time. I feel like it's very ego driven, so I don't think that like lower viewership is going to suddenly make them realize the weird situation they've put themselves in. But two, I think it's a bit different, right? Where in Magic 30, there was a very expensive product that people did not purchase, right? Whereas watching the broadcast, I think, is a bit of a different commitment. I have somebody here who has experience talking to sponsors and working with sponsors. Joining the show now, we'll get him on camera in a second, is Kelby May. Kelby, since we're talking about sponsorships, what do you think this looks like from a sponsor perspective?
What a
hey
segue.
guys. Yeah, it's I will say over the course of my career, I've had a lot of very difficult conversations with partners about delivering a product that did not match what we promised. I would not be envious of the position of the people on the Riot sponsorships team headed into this week. The narrative for the league, I think, has been really difficult from a commercial perspective, especially over the past 12 months. It's going to be really, really hard to explain to your partners how they are getting the value that they signed up for here. So, yeah, it's if I was a partner, I would 1,000,000% be asking about make goods, payment reductions, potentially even trying to, leverage this situation for leaving the partnership if things didn't continue. This is a terrible product to be associated with. You would not want your logo up on broadcast if LCS actually goes live this week with something. Like,
well, let me tell you,
I agree 1,000,000% with what Phil was talking about earlier. Like, Riot should be completely embarrassed. And it's so detrimental to the LCS brand if they actually try and move forward with this as like professional League of Legends. I don't know. It's a really weird decision to me.
So if you go to the front page of lolesports.com and you click on 2023 LCS Summer Split Primer, the very first sentence on that article is, the 2023 LCS Summer Split begins on June 1st with opening day presented by MasterCard. Fans who join us at the Riot Games Arena will receive exclusive summer-themed merch and an invite to chill with the players at our after-hours block party. Phil,
Yeah.
should fans showing up on June 1st currently expect to chill with the players at the
Phil.
after-hours block party?
Why the fuck are you ruining our block party?
I want to go to the block party.
Do you think Riot will invite you?
I mean, I hope they do after we complete a successful negotiation where we have a win-win-win. You know, they win, we win, and the moderator wins.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
mediator.
I was gonna say goodbye to halfzippedjacket, but if you have any thoughts, Mark.
No. We have one more caller to get through with Phil, and then we'll do the transition. As long as you have time, Phil, and we can make.
I can hang around. I told you know, the game's over, the Celtics are dead, and Kelby's here. Like, where else would I want to be?
Okay.
Halfzippedjacket. Thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out before we go on to our next caller?
Shout out to all you guys for the show, and shout out to Mark for catching up with Doublelift. That segment is fucking amazing.
Very good. Thanks so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
4-box me with Kelby. Where's Kelby's face?
Yeah, listen, I'm doing a lot of production work here. We don't have a producer.
I'll kick halfzippedjacket for you.
I got him.
Oh, you did.
We can vamp while you get Kelby on here.
Yeah, I'm getting him on.
So, what do you guys think of the power rankings of the Scab team? Should I do a Scab power ranking? We were talking about like how we're going to continue to do our content with I was suggesting that Travis continues to interview pro players like they're just like who they are. It's like whoever C9 fields for top lane, Travis should get an interview with that person. Just call them Fudge and interview them like Fudge. I can do power rankings off Scab rosters. Emily can do a draw my Scab. I think it would bang.
I think you could do like a Billy on the Street style segment where Travis goes to like Venice Beach and just starts interviewing people as if they're suiting up.
He tries to recruit someone himself. Hey, you want to play in the LCS this weekend?
Exactly.
Kelby, are you on? I don't see your camera. Do you see it up?
On what? On Skype or Discord?
Skype.
Skype.
He's not
Oh,
on
sorry.
Skype.
Yeah, let me log in.
Okay.
Join
That's-
call.
Not Peter Dunn,
Somebody
by
said-
the way. Fixing the overlay. There we go. You said you can vamp, and yet there's no
So
vamping
I was
happening.
gonna. I'll keep
you
vamping
put my
it.
face behind a thing, so
Yeah, because
I
I'm
was just
fixing
like-
it.
I was having you distracted me. I'm having fun.
Podcast listeners are tuning out by the millions.
Why are you
Kelby,
trying to hide the LCSPA?
talking about the relationship with sponsors and them like trying to get make goods and price reductions? Is this like how common is that? I guess because like I'm someone who's like too far down the totem pole to see that kind of stuff. How frequent is like sponsors trying to like leverage situations to get some kind of like price cuts or whatever?
I mean, honestly, in all transparency, if you're managing the relationship correctly, I think it's something you should be proactive about offering to make sure that the relationship stays healthy. I've never been in a situation where we just have something like, and obviously deliverables go wrong all the time, especially working in the influencer or esports space, right? Like it's just going to happen. Things aren't going to happen as expected or delivered. But like you don't want to deliver something that's different than what you promised and then just hand it over to somebody and be like, oh, you're going to be okay with this, right? And then have them come back to you and be like, what the fuck? Of course I'm not okay with it. Like this isn't what we talked about, right? So I always have tried to be really proactive in that sense and been like, hey, I know that this isn't what we want. This is what we are going to do to make it better. Is this something that would leave you feeling like you were taken care of, or at least coming out even better? You know what I mean? So usually the onus is to be like, okay, we fucked up. So not only how am I going to fix it, how am I going to make it feel like even coming out of this bad situation, they feel really well taken care of. I think that's extremely difficult to do in this case in point. I'm not going to say anything further.
Let me introduce Kelby. Kelby, you've been, for those that do not know, they're wondering what Kelby is doing here. Kelby was a pseudo third member of Hotline League for a couple of years when we first started. He was a friend of Mark and mine that works in the space, and we had him on very frequently. And then he stopped watching LCS as much, and other things happened, and so he's been gone. But he's come on a couple times since. Twitch chat is asking if he became super rich, and let me say that Kelby has a new job. So I'm not saying that these two things are disconnected, but as you say, the Twitch chat is asking because they're looking and seeing that huge window behind him with the beautiful
skyline
city
with the
view.
ninja microphone.
Yes, exactly.
This is the apartment in Montreal. So
He has
crazy.
two
thing,
apartments, by the way. Previously had 3. He had to cut down to 2.
Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah.
Well, Montreal, a lot cheaper than Los Angeles, it turns out. Could not afford to buy in Los Angeles, could definitely afford to buy in Montreal. So,
Kelby can afford to buy in Los Angeles.
Agreed.
Dude, no, God, oh my God. But yeah, my partner's
Eat the
Canadian,
rich.
so I do halftime Montreal, halftime in LA because we want to live together full time. So,
Yeah. All right. So, what are you doing now, Kelby, for work-wise?
so I work for Off Brand. I'm the CRO at Off Brand. So I handle Ludwig's personal sponsorships and all commercial opportunities for Off Brand. And before that, I was running partnerships at Loaded,
Very good.
which is a management group in the space.
That works with me for disclosure reasons.
Yep. And I also rep and manage Peter and Busio. So or Double Lift and Busio.
For disclosure reasons.
Yes.
We have a
Nepotism.
shill, a player shill on the show next to the Players Association. All right.
Yeah.
Mark, you want to go grab our next caller?
Yeah.
All right. Mark has also pulled a shocking name into the waiting room that will offend many of you. All right. Shout out to so many subs. Oh my. Okay, I can't keep up. Sakowitz is here. Sakowitz, I feel like we haven't had you on since the days of old whenever Kelby was on. So you're also an older name,
Man,
I think.
I think the last time I was on, was it when Stixay was a guest? Maybe? One of those, either that or Medios.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Some kind of
I will
COG
also
stick.
say that Sakowitz's take is more of like a statement on his own feelings and like less of a conversation point. But I thought it was a good opportunity to let fans just like say how they feel about the situation. And like, I don't know if we'll have a ton to bounce off of it, but like,
Sakowitz, where are you calling from?
We're a community show is what I'm saying.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Houston, Texas at the moment.
Gotcha. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I kind of want to just have like that, I am the fan. I'm doing the little public call out of, I think, Riot esport leadership at the moment. Whether it's John Needham or Nas or whoever else, someone is making actively wrong decisions for the first time. And for the first time, it feels like they are taking decisions that strictly go against what they say. Their actions are truly speaking louder than their words for the first time. Because in the past, we've seen poor decisions potentially go through. There have been rumors about, the import rule thing, which apparently was, just the rumor. We've seen poor management around ticket sales. We've seen, how slow it takes for them to listen to fans about Worlds, for example, and changing to a better format. But it's never felt as a fan that Riot has actively taken the wrong decision, and there's clearly something wrong at Riot themselves because they don't, the teams are at Riot's mercy. The teams are asking for this, but without us, without most people knowing where the money is truly going, especially when, they get a large, they get paid at the end of every season, right? For regardless, they get the incentive, and most of that doesn't even go to their, or most of that is used elsewhere other than even on their league, where they could spend it on, say, the academy, their academy team, which they aren't fielding it. It's infuriating as a fan, and it's just such a strange decision for them to make, where the community is mostly against them. The players are mostly against them. The news is mostly against them. The influencers are mostly against them. How can they possibly think this is the right move?
Well, I will say, if everyone's against them, it is funny to me that Mark pulled this take and then disappeared from the camera shot.
He
so
walked out on your take.
Riot chill. Riot chill.
So I'm the one who pulls the takes, but also I walked out. So what am I doing is the question, huh?
Oh, you walked out. I see. Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
You're
no.
just
I
ahead of schedule.
I didn't know what he was going to say. I didn't know what he was going to say.
No. I'm not attacking you, Mark. You're good.
So
I
just
love
don't wanna
this
be
take.
afraid
This is
of
a
the
great
basic
take.
I am very confused as well because I think in my conversations with the Riot Esports leadership, I have always found them to be reasonable, logical people who sometimes make mistakes or not as clued into the community as I wish that they were. But at the end of the day, I feel as though they are like, they can understand, 2 + 2 = 4. And that is why I've been so confused, because it feels like many of the decisions that they have made in response to the Players Association and everything that's gone down since then are not rational responses. Even as so much as like how much they're trying to brute force Thursday into occurring. And so I agree with you where like I am very perplexed because look, I know there's a lot of other personalities out there and I take a lot of heat for being the guy that is like not just out there to roast these guys and say that they're criminals and awful human beings and blah, 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 blah. But I legitimately think that they are generally rational people who want the league to succeed, even if they are sometimes making decisions that I think are contrary to that goal. But yeah, I think, earlier today on stream, when all this news was coming out or when I was reporting on it, I put my video out, Mark and I were just like laughing hysterically. And part of it is because so much of this just feels incredibly absurd. And the absurdity hits new levels every couple of hours, right? Like it becomes they're going to run scabs, and then it becomes, like
it feels like just this time. I think was it 2 years ago now that like this time of year where like teams were doing interviews with the teams about potentially removing the import rule. Is that this time of year?
No, it was a couple years ago, but yeah, in February.
Tradition of
But
spring.
that on top of like, it's just one of those things where it's like, if the players wanted to unionize, for example, and say form a salary cap for themselves, that would for a lot of people in my mind, and a lot of fans of the LCS that want to see regional talent, that would be a way of kind of inhibiting. Okay, they can't out the ass spend for imports, for example. No $10 million perks, no $6 million sword art, miss financial decisions, if you can call them that, misfires, I guess. Something that Riot would probably end up being against, even if it was for the net benefit that would align with all of their goals, for at least what they say for the health of LoL esports or for the region.
I totally get you, Sakowitz. I think a lot of it has just been very, very confusing. So I think I agree with Mark's take or Mark's assessment that I'm really happy to have you on the show and get sort of the fan reaction out. But I do want to. Unfortunately, we have to keep moving because we only have limited time.
Just one last question for you specifically. You had the John Needham interview, right? Are you planning on interviewing Nas in the anytime? Or
yes. So I brought this up at MSI because I thought that it was going to happen at MSI. It got postponed to when, hey, sometime hopefully before summer split. I have not heard from Riot around any of this stuff, and so I don't, and they had told me that they were going to figure stuff out on their end on when we could do it. My guess is they're not going to do this interview until this stuff gets sorted. Like, I just can't imagine, unless they suddenly change their strategy, that they're going to actually follow up on their commitment to me previously. Quite frankly, because if I was in the role of managing this, I would not be letting my executives go out and talk to media as they're running it down and, and fielding potentially Broads players on opening day. So I don't expect that to happen, but I'd like to. It would just be a really fucking weird interview, but I would like to. Anyway, thanks, Sakowitz. Anything you want to shout out?
Just want to shout out myself. Teams, I'm available as a scab. I have a Bonds account.
Cut him
I'm
off.
available.
Cut him off.
Very good. Thanks, Sakowitz, for the call. All right.
A little rambly.
Scabs.
It's Phil. It's so easy for Phil. It was too easy for Phil to block all the potential candidates, and so they said, "Block this motherfucker," and then they just opened the floodgates. Any player, let's see him stop this.
They're just sending plants to your call-in show too now.
Yeah, I know.
Every person's going to come and declare themselves to scab.
Yes. All right.
Can I actually ask a question that is related to the last caller's topic?
Sure.
Or do we want to let this caller go first?
If it's really quick, Kelby, it's good.
I'll hold it for later.
Okay, yeah. Phil's gonna say goodbye, so we can talk about it afterwards.
Micspam is one of the homies too, so like if you want to go and just say whatever your reaction is going to be.
Well, if it's going to open a conversation, let's do it after Phil leaves. Unless you feel okay.
Well,
Are you
I'm
kicking
kind
me
of
off?
serious
leaving.
since I don't want
Phil
Phil.
said-
Yeah.
Phil said he was
I
staying.
Yeah, I said I could stay and hang for a little while. I'm
Yeah.
going to have
Dude,
some players
this
need to
is the
talk
thing
to
with
me.
Travis.
They're going to message me.
He just doesn't fucking listen ever. That's the problem with Travis.
Mark,
He
I
doesn't
had
wanna
a message from Phil before the start of the show that said if Kelby is coming on, I could extend to 8:30, but I have a meeting with players. So yes, I fucking listen, and this is me trying to fucking listen. All right, Mike Spam, what would you like to talk about on the show, and where are you calling from?
Just got back from SeaTac. In fact, had someone sign a union card today for making progress.
Let's go.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thanks. But what I wanted to ask about was something tertiary to what's been talking about. And I wanted to ask Kelby, since you're working with influencers now, what do you think of influencer esports orgs like Disguised Toast? And do you think these orgs are sustainable long term, or is it just going to be a flash in the pan thing for now?
So
Kelby's the wrong person
That's
for this
hilarious.
question now.
we should
That's a
ask.
hilarious question.
It's so great to ask Kelby this too because Kelby, explain why this is a funny question to ask you.
Well, because I mean, Let and Charlie Moist Critical have a venture together, Moist Moguls, which is an esports organization that I'm supposed to be helping Hunter monetize this. My first week was last week, so we're figuring it out. Yeah, I mean, a serious response to your question.
Hunter in chat says yes.
a serious response here.
He says yes, you fuck. I'm glad he's you guys are sorting out job responsibilities and financial obligations in the Twitch chat during the show.
It doesn't really matter the party that you are. The ecosystem that you're playing in is an unsustainable ecosystem at present, right? So like even if we all four, everybody else is taken out, us as a group of 5 right here, we all in different teams, but then somebody else comes in, a sixth party, and they just dramatically overinflate the market because they have like a bunch of cash and they're just jacking up player salaries and they make it unsustainable for all the rest of us, then guess what? We've created an unsustainable ecosystem. That is the space that influencers are playing in right now. I think obviously with the esports winter, we're going to get some adjustment and probably some normalization over time. But yeah, the advantage, I guess I would say, that influencers have, in contrast to others competing in this market, is that they have the ability to create additional inventory that another esports organization might not have on its own. It's kind of similar to like what Nadeshot provided 100 Thieves at the beginning, right? A face of the brand, somebody who can draw a lot of viewership and attention to their team's product, which you then obviously can monetize, right? When Moist Critical does watch parties for his Apex team, like that's a big viewership event. You can do content series, you can do other things. Now, you're really kind of just supplanting the influencer's value in one space and bringing it to esports, right? Like it's still the influencer that's driving the head amount of the value there. But, you know, they need content ideas. They need things to be passionate about to create for their audience. So this can be a good one.
Yeah, that was what I was going to kind of throw in there too, is like the co-streaming being enabled in like kind of a thing in the ecosystem now makes this idea a lot more tenable than it was back in like the early days, like 2018 or before that, where like if an influencer owned a team, like how did you get the eyeballs of the influencer to watch that product if they couldn't touch it directly? And whereas now a co-stream solves that, where it's just like, yeah, Toast will just watch his team play, and like that's content for him, and it's obviously way too expensive for the content that he's getting back out of it, but like hopefully it's a passion project and it feels good and like all that stuff. So it sounds like you're saying a little bit though that the market is still too inflated for like the financials to maybe make sense for influencers when you say like you're stepping into an ecosystem as it is right now.
Yeah, especially because like all of these influencers that are backing these teams, they don't need these teams to create content. Sure, they can create content around the teams, but like ultimately they can get just as much viewership, just as much commercial success doing other things that don't cost them multiple 7 figures a year to operate.
They can scroll Reddit for the same or more viewership, realistically.
Yeah, exactly. So
Or those streams, bring those back. He's starting a new series.
What?
Wait, do you not remember when everyone was doing the reaction videos to like Gordon Ramsay and people would just watch Gordon Ramsay on stream?
It was just
that never stopped.
Yeah.
Realistically.
Yeah.
Good business.
Yeah.
But I guess the reason I asked was because a lot of people are saying, okay, teams want to pull out, we'll just get 10 influencers to have teams, and that'll be the future of the LCS or whatever.
Yeah,
I hope for their sake not.
I mean, I think that, look, we have examples of successful influencer-led orgs in Europe with Koi and K-Corp, which one of those is eBuy's team? One of them is eBuy's team. Or am I thinking of a third one that is eBuy's team? Regardless, I do think that there is a world where this stuff Koi, thank you. I do think there's a world where this stuff can start to the teams can start to transcend the influencer, where it's not just Moist Critical watching on stream, but it's like he builds a narrative around the team and he stays more involved. And it's like, quite frankly, much more than what Nadeshot did early on with 100 Thieves, where he was kind of around in the LCS in the beginning and then started to disappear. So I think that there is an evolution of what we're seeing in North America, and I think it's already in Europe in terms of fandom that can be built around this stuff. But I do agree that if the scene is already oddly inflated and there's weird stuff happening and all that, it's going to be hard for these guys to come in a meaningful way. So work to be done for sure. Phil, I don't know if you want to speak on any of this stuff or if we should go on to another call.
Yeah, I think that we just, our top point in our Ask to Riot talks about promotion relegation. And the reason why is because we think it adds a healthy amount of competition, but also opportunity for, for new organizations that are, thinking more intelligently and be more successful to be a part of the future. And I think we need to have a more dynamic league. I think that's definitely important, and it's something that we want to have that conversation about and try and find ways to get to. I also say that the market inflation that Kelby talks about, a lot of it's driven by the creation of franchise tokens. When you put the opportunity for an organization to gain a huge, valuable asset in their books, it warps the incentives. That's what happened in this industry, and we do have to figure out how to disentangle from that so that we can get the industry to a healthier and more sustainable place. But yeah, we're not there now, and I absolutely understand Kelby's feelings about the decisions for influencers joining the space. I think it's exciting because I do think that they bring fresh and passionate eyes. Like when an influencer comes in and they have a team, they give a shit about the players they have and they care about winning and losing. Like it's really refreshing. I feel like it's something we've been missing for a while from a lot of operators in the space. So I welcome it.
Phil, are you worried at all? I know you're excited about influencers coming in space. Are you worried that the new sales and revenue guy at Moist Moguls is so opposed, I guess, to influencer-led investment into the esports space?
I really appreciate Kelby. This is where, everyone who knows Kelby knows that, one of his best qualities is that he is incredibly honest. And he will always tell you genuinely how he feels. And people who mistake that who are not his friends will mistake it as his worst quality. But I very much like that Kelby tells me the truth. And you know what? I can deal with someone who says I can't pay you because I don't have the money. That's something I can work with. When I can believe you and I can trust you, that's workable. And so I welcome Kelby and I welcome people into our space to be problem solvers.
Isn't this what LCS teams were telling their challenger teams? I can't pay you because I don't have the money.
as they counted the check from Riot on the side. So.
Very good. All right. Thank you, micspam, for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
I'm good. Just I'll get out of you guys' way.
Thanks so much for the call.
Thank you.
Phil, do we have you for another call?
Yeah, let's just keep rolling. I'm just until I get a message from the player who said he wanted to talk to me after he was done practicing, I'm good to keep going. Maybe he's a Hotline League watcher, in which case we should keep you having your viewers as long as possible.
Thank you. Yes, we have pretty high viewership tonight. I do need to run an ad soon, but thank you to Kayla, Friction Lawful. I missed so many subs have come in that some have run off, and I can't get some of the earlier ones. I'll try to figure it out after the show. But thank you to Kayla, Friction Lawful. Oh, we've got our next caller here, and it's none other than fan favorite, everyone's boy, Tomshoe. Please be on your best behavior. Tomshoe, where are you calling from, Tomshoe?
Yeah, you know how it is. I'm just kidding. I'm doing good. Calling in from Washington, D.C.
What do you want to talk about on the show?
Welcome back, Kelby!
I just had a question for Phil. I know we've been talking a lot about the kind of the $3 million or $2 and $3 million revenue share that are coming from Riot to the teams. I think the question here is, now that they're dropping the academy teams, under the guise of saying that all these LCS teams are such in a bad financial position, like, has there been an increased push for transparency of like organization finances, and not just the LCS based finances, but for pretty much all of it as a whole? Because if I'm seeing that 3 million, everyone being dropped there, and all these listed academy salaries are going between 300,000 to like $1 million or so, then it makes you wonder, like, where is kind of the rest of it going, right? Is it all being invested into the league infrastructure, or is it going into other, team operations, or is it just getting absorbed into the owner's pocket, right? So we need to kind of ask that question. It's like, all right, are we really getting the whole picture here, is the question.
I think it's a great question. We have always asked for more transparency. Had a conversation with someone who works on the team side, who was talking to me about the TPA, and I have seen the TPA, the team participation agreement between the teams and Riot. I was at a team, and so I saw it. It was 3 years ago now. I would love to see it today. It's hard to remember a document, a multi-page legal document I saw 3 years ago. We would love to have transparency on what that entails, what it means. It's a very important part of the ecosystem, and it affects players and their standing at all times. So we'd love to see that. We'd love to understand the revenue sharing more. Our reporting is secondhand. Riot and teams do not tell us directly this information. So we are somewhat at their behest. We think transparency would be incredibly helpful. And I think it's really impactful for us to know that teams are getting more money in revenue sharing than they're spending on player compensation. And that was when they had NACL teams. Now most of them don't have an NACL team. So now we know teams are spending much less than they're getting in revenue sharing from the league. And in other games I've worked in, there have been long conversations about the importance of developers requiring that the money that they give these teams in their games be spent on the games that they're giving the money to. Teams are not supposed to be just relying on the revenue share. They're supposed to be out there generating various things, from merchandising brands to YouTube content to sponsorship deliverables and revenue, in order to be a contributor to this space and not just a taker from the space. So, yep, we absolutely would love to see more transparency. Do you have any deets you want to give me?
No.
Yeah, I wish. I just have a follow-up question. Have you considered making this part of the kind of the demands that you made from Riot? I know that it doesn't seem like it was on that list, not that I remember, but it seems like it's pretty important.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not. I mean, when you're making a list, I think we can get back to our friend Artichoke. He had a list with a lot of points on it, and it made it hard for everyone to get through it. You gotta cut down to get where you can do digestible. Riot is well aware that we have many an ask into them that is not just on that list. They're everything from buyout caps to scalable termination without cause to transparency on the revenue system and the rules that go on behind the scenes that we don't get to see in the the LOM, the league operating manual. So absolutely, there's a bunch of other asks going on, including transparency. They're all important, but yeah, we had to make a pick for this post, and those are the ones that made it.
This is a slightly unrelated on the financial topic question towards Kelby that someone had in Discord. Ashar said he knows you haven't been involved in LCS sponsorships for a while, but like, how sustainable do you think it is as the primary form of revenue for the LCS? You know, what % do you think the revenue from the LCS is for that versus merch or potentially other things? And then, you know, like what do you think is like the sustainable model for the LCS? Is it just relying on sponsorships? Is there other things that you think Riot should be doing to help get even more than the 3 million that we're kind of talking about here?
For the team side or the league side?
I guess league side, because it's a rev split. So like presumably some portion of that is going to the teams.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely would have much more insight into the team side because that's the area that I've actually operated in before, selling and consulting even at Loaded for teams that were operating in that ecosystem. I haven't done a lot of league deals. I think that, you know, one of the things that I did like that Riot talked about in Needham's post about the future is like productizing this ecosystem a lot more and getting revenue in through that way. Otherwise, yes, like all you have, you know, that I can think of off the top of my head certainly is like you have broadcast rights, which Riot, I won't share my opinion on that because I'm conflicted in my response on how Riot handled the negotiation of their broadcast rights deals in the past. But I think that Riot and the team owners are pretty disappointed with the result that they ended up having there. And then, yeah, other than that, it's like, you know, it's sponsor revenue. I think that, again, like, you know, with a product that is trending down in terms of viewership and then something like this occurring, it gets more difficult over time. Also, like the ecosystem, there is a lot of conversation. I talk to a lot of brands in the space, right? There's a lot of conversation that's been happening over the last 12 months in particular where so many large brands feel that they have gotten really burned in esports in general and are shifting their marketing budgets out of this. We saw it this year in particular with the number of brands that exited the space from team partners, from league sponsorships. Like, there are just so many people that came in, and honestly, I wouldn't say it to a lot of my clients, but like the brands have a decent amount of ownership in this as well, in terms of like, if you sign up for a bad deal, like you bear some responsibility in that, right? Just like a player, if they sign a bad contract, they don't have an agent, they don't have a lawyer, like, the teams are taking advantage. You are not putting yourself in a position to be properly represented, and you're allowing yourself to be taken advantage of to a certain extent. So like, yeah, but there are just so many brands that have had a really terrible experience and are shifting their marketing budgets outside. They still see the value in gaming, but they're not interested in spending in esports anymore. And as a result, even if you do have a good product to offer, there's just such a huge uphill battle in terms of actually winning sentiment from brands to be involved in the space now, because they just don't want to get burned again, which is something that like I was really deathly afraid of, you know, looking at this space a couple years ago and why I transitioned out of it. Here we are.
And you're back at it again, representing sales efforts for Moist Esports.
Yeah, for sure.
According to Hunter.
Kelby is representing this esports org as he goes, esport orgs are a bad investment, guys. If you want good returns on your brand deals, you gotta go straight to influencers. But don't tell.
He went to the right org for it. I mean, the introduction to the space, right, was the learning how to burn money video.
Yeah.
Good time. So, you know, this is why I appreciate honest people. You know, let's all appreciate that we're burning some money. Like, we're gonna have a great time. We're burning.
You should just invest in Magic the Gathering. Tomshoe, thank you so much for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I can be serious sometimes. But yeah, I've been hearing on Twitter that, you know, since they got rid of the rank requirement, even a couple former Academy players have already agreed to be scabs. God, I really hope he didn't become a scab. I really don't know what I would do.
Yeah,
thanks
if
for
your
doing
hero
this,
Yasui becomes a scab, it's gonna be.
God, it's gonna be mind breaking. Oh my God,
Phil, you have one big mission, which is to make sure Yasui, the Tomshoe favorite of North American talent, who never really came to fruition, doesn't scab. Oh, Phil's searching. I can see him right now. He's already on it, tomshoe.
Yeah, please don't.
He's
Please
checking
do
his
this
list
for
of
me.
scabs.
Yeah.
Do me one favor. I'd love it.
Is he on the scab list? All right. Thanks so much, Tom. We'll catch you later.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right. All right. I need to take. We got to do an ad. I've been waiting for a little bit, so let's do a quick ad.
Sorry.
No, you're
You
good.
put an ad. I'll talk to Yasui.
Great, fantastic. Thank you. Shout out. We were just talking about sponsorships. I can tell you one sponsor who's definitely not getting scammed, and that's Alienware, because they're an amazing partner, and we love to give them amazing value in having them in shows like this one. We have right now 3,000 people watching this. And I think it's fantastic that you guys are all here to support Alienware, my sponsor, as we talk about them. So I know I've been talking about it a lot, but please go check out the M18. You can do that at alienware.com/Travis. It's an amazing notebook. It got amazing reviews. I think there might be time if you're watching live to still catch the Memorial Day sale. I know they were doing a sale over there for that. If you're watching tomorrow, maybe, just go check. Maybe there might still be some good deals going. We'll find out. But I do really appreciate Alienware. They allow me to do stuff like this. And no joke, let me just say, I have felt fairly good about the coverage that I've been able to provide around all this stuff. I think it is important, the work that I do around these types of things. And I think there are others in the space that are also doing great work as well. But I'm just really happy that I have partners like Alienware that can enable me to be here still doing this job after so many years and still providing coverage of this stuff. So I know you guys hear a lot about brands, and you hear, you're always bombarded, and influencers are telling you about, hashtag partner this and hashtag add that. But like, legitimately, I really, really appreciate partners like Alienware that allow me to provide coverage of important topics like this by supporting me. So thank you so much to Alienware. And again, check them out, alienware.com/Travis. There's a link in the YouTube description if you want to catch them there. All right.
Wait, can I say I love Alienware, and I was always mad. Kelby used to sell our inventory when I was at Evil Geniuses, and I was always like, get us Alienware, Kelby. He's like, you're not good enough for Alienware. They're elite. So somehow you've qualified, and your program passes the muster of the Alienware test.
What do you mean somehow?
So.
I provide a lot of value to brands, unlike LCS teams. Okay, or teams in the space. You weren't an LCS team, I guess, at the time. All right. Mark, you want to go grab the next caller? Thank you to everybody who's subbing. At the end of the show, I will just give a massive shout out to everybody who subbed. I know normally I can run through those really quickly during the show, but we were just jamming so much stuff in, and there's so much to talk about that I haven't had a chance to do that. But I just know that your subs are seen, and even if you are not here, I will shout you out. I will make sure that you get recognition. So thank you. Mark is back with bluestork. bluestork, where are you calling from?
Ironically, given Tom's last call, I'm calling from Bethesda, Maryland, right outside DC, or as my fiance and I call it, Todd Howard, Maryland.
Gotcha.
How's Starfield coming along?
I'll let you know when Tom tells me, or when Tom tells me.
Very good. What do you want to talk about on the show?
I would like to talk about how, given Riot's decision to pressure orgs into hiring scabs, now more than ever, the Players Association needs to become a formal union.
All right. You want to elaborate a little bit more?
Sure. So to preface this, Travis, I actually saw your vid about sort of calling out some of the people potentially that were asking for unionization. I have been part of unionizing workplace. Yes, it is very difficult. So when you said, ask yourself, viewer, have you ever been part of a union? Like, yes, I actually.
Well, clearly we're going to be a couple people. A lot of people watch that video. Yeah, I was just hoping to target the majority.
Just saying, I have been part of a union, and despite its hurdles, I do think it's worth it. I also have I have some friends and colleagues who are also union organizers, so I know a little bit about the space. And I really think ultimately the biggest thing is the collective bargaining power is not something to shirk or to underestimate its power. It's incredibly potent with helping workers to essentially meet demands against their employers. There is one thing that I want to bring up that Artichoke said, which is putting skin in the game. And right after you said it, right before you said it, Phil, I had the same thought of like, you are putting your job on the line. And I think it's important to remember that with unionizing, so much of it, I mean, can you ever... I don't think any employer in the space has ever actually followed the National Labor Relations Act when it comes to actually respecting workers' rights to unionize in terms of actually giving them the space to do so. Union busting is a huge industry in the United States.
Shout out to the Pinkertons.
Yeah, right. And so the collective bargaining power is definitely, I think, one of the biggest. Apologies if my thoughts are a little scattered. Though I do think some of the other aspects of unionizing are incredibly important, which is to say you get to put more money into it. Dues can be an incredibly useful way of collectively organizing. I actually don't know if the Players Association currently takes dues, but I will say that one of the biggest things that employers love to say is, oh, well, you have to spend your money on union dues. Union dues help make sure that you are being represented the best that you can be. You ensure that there is a staff and a framework in place to make sure that your interests are being met. There are lots of smaller benefits, but those are sort of the ones that come to my mind the most.
So general topic is
I'll try and just
go ahead.
Sorry, I know that was a lot.
No, it's fine. I'm trying to mediate, and Mark keeps butting in. What do you want, Mark?
I'll say like my thing that it was kind of talking about like the player. His thesis was the players need to make a union. Then he listed a bunch of reasons that unions are great. But like my question to Phil is like, is this something that the players are now seeing the value of and pushing for? Is there like a plan moving forward to begin the steps to unionize? Are you able to say this kind of stuff? I don't really know.
Yeah, I'd also like to know that.
Yeah, I mean, I can say anything.
Can you speak with a level of truth and accuracy to those questions?
I like to think that I come into these calls and these interviews with the intent to provide candor beyond normal expectations of people who show up with a PR plan. So that's my intent for you here. I'd say as an association, you got to crawl, walk, run. And right now we're working on walking out. So kind of at stage 2 right now. Unionization is the running part. We did a lot of work getting from the crawl stage in the last 2 weeks, moving to talk to players, help them understand what are their rights, what can you do, what is protected, what is your power. For players to understand that taking an action together can cause them to have better outcomes in their future is like, it is a like paradigm shifting sort of thing to plant in someone's mind and any worker's mind, that if we work together, we're stronger than if we're apart. We in America especially are educated constantly to the idea that we are better, that rugged individualism, we are better on our own, better alone. We do not need strong government. We do not need strong unions. I will do better if I hold myself up for my bootstraps. So there's a lot of deprogramming required to to bring about labor movements, and a lot of that's happened in the last 2 weeks. And is that the, I suppose we should thank Riot from that perspective for helping to awaken the organizing minds of many players. But are we going to get there? I don't know, but it's definitely a conversation we're going to have because these actions do require players to consider what you need to do to have a real seat in the room. And we had a halfway seat. And Riot has shown us that they can pull it at any time they want. And so that's where we're at. We're definitely going to start those conversations, but we got to walk right now, and I got to put all my focus on that. So
I got to imagine that the decision by Riot to try, like, pro players are so competitive, obviously, that the decision by Riot to be like, no, we're going to replace you with randoms has got to be something that only makes them more willing to invest into collective bargaining and fighting or collective organizing, I guess is what I should say. Like that it is ironic because I feel like the decisions that are being made are only going to encourage escalation among the players. And that's been bizarre to me because, again, none of this feels strategically sound. It doesn't feel like strategic decisions are being made. So I don't know. Phil, have you had a chance to talk to any players, or have you heard any or seen any of the sentiment from folks on as news has broken about the desire to push for replacements and all this stuff?
I mean, are you talking about specifically to your news breaking from this call?
Yeah, this call, and then also the coverage over the last 24 hours about the scab stuff.
As we've established, I've been very focused on this call during my time here, except when tabbing out to look at the Heat Celtics game.
Yeah.
But I've not been looking at Twitter to see the response to this. But I think that we can. I think it is easy to predict the response because it is an obvious one, and it is, again, truly confusing as to why Riot would do something like this. It doesn't seem to serve any positive outcome for anyone. In terms of the scab conversation at large, I mean, I think for a lot of people in this space, they knew a scab to be what happens when you go try and touch grass and you stumble and fall. Like that was the only scab that most people in esports probably knew until very recently. So understanding that the stakes at play here and what crossing a picket line means and what performing labor in place of someone who's in protest means. Those are hard conversations. We've been having a lot of them, and I'll be having some more tonight after I get off this call with players, talking to them about what it means to, not stand in solidarity. That, yeah, you have an opportunity to take money in order to fill this job, but you have to look at why that job's available. Is it truly a job for you for the future, or is what you're doing actually harmful to your opportunity to get a good paying job? And so it's a responsibility for everyone, whether you're one of the people walking out or not, to be in solidarity with your fellow workers. And for us, that means players, if you get asked, you got to say no. And it's hard. I've had some hard conversations with players, people who say, the team's promising me that they're going to provide X, Y, and Z if I do this favor for them. If I go do this on stage, they'll give me something back. Players who've been cut, for the record, who've been cut by teams, and teams said, you aren't worth anything to me, are now being made promises if they'll just do this one favor for a team. And it's really hard to tell them, I teared up on a call the other day because telling somebody I need you to say no to that money is it is literally the opposite of what my job is supposed to be. It's supposed to tell people, take the check, get paid, do the work, and tell us if anything goes wrong so we can make sure you get treated fairly. So asking somebody not to work, I take it really seriously, and it's really hard to talk to a lot of young people. I'm getting a little choked up right now. It's really hard to talk to young people and tell them, don't take a job.
Yeah, I also... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
If I might,
No.
It's a very quick thing. Phil, I just think it's ironic that we're living in 2023, and basically it's the same as, not to go too folksy, but the line in which side are you on of, don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. It's like they're going to promise you favors, but you never actually know what you're going to get. Anyway, sorry. I'll let the experts talk now.
No, you're good. Kelby?
No, I was just gonna say I don't know if you guys have done this yet, but I need to publicly just celebrate Phil for what he has been able to accomplish in his time at the LCSPA. This is something that Travis and Phil and I know about, but when Phil was leaving EG and considering taking this job, I told him explicitly and repeatedly, please, Phil, God, do not take this job. It is an impossible one. Getting the players to organize in their best interest is something that I had a lot of exposure to, and I just thought was impossible. There's nothing that you could do. And I think that what Phil has been able to accomplish in his time at the LCSPA and actually organizing the walkout and getting them to follow through with it is probably honestly one of the most impressive accomplishments I've seen in the course of our industry. So Phil, I just want to say I'm really, really happy that you didn't listen to me and took that job, didn't get downtrodden when the times were hard, and also that the players have somebody like you who can work with them, can mentor them, and help them, through this development and really, really hard period. So I'm just super appreciative of you, man.
You're too sweet. And now I look like I just stayed on in order to receive my flowers live on camera. So thank you. But we have a lot of work to do. We have not walked out yet. We voted for something.
Yeah.
But I did get 50 players in a call, basically on time.
I mean, that's the craziest thing.
That would be the
Anybody
first in
else.
history.
That's
I
a
would say
first.
outside Riot,
Nuts.
Riot is probably the only entity in the space that's ever gotten 50 players on different teams altogether.
Yeah, and they do, but they do. When Riot does it, it's because they're like coordinating with team managers to corral the players and make sure they're on and all that stuff like that. Like that. I mean, again, there was just I mentioned this in the video earlier today, but there was extreme skepticism that the players could be organized in this way, and you know, like I don't mean to slam the players, they just are not. This is not their core competency. Like they've just spent,
And they're young and inexperienced.
Yeah, they've been trained to play video games. They've trained themselves to play video games and just focus on that at all costs. And so, like, becoming part of a labor movement and becoming, you know, having to put yourself on the line, and in some cases going to your teammates and asking them to be a part of this, and taking, you know, going on shows. Vulcan was on last week talking about all this stuff. It's not why any of these guys decided to become a pro player. And so I do think it's very impressive that Phil was able to do this, and I think also very impressive of the players that they've been able to do this. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. Hey, thanks so much, bluestork, for the call. We've got one more call to go to, so I want to say goodbye to you. Is there anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I just want to shout out Phil and all the great work he's doing. I'm sure the flowers you will get will be red roses. As for, I'd like to shout out Alienware for supporting the stream, and shout out to all the other strikes that are going on right now in the U.S., including the WGA down there in Los Angeles. Thanks, guys.
Funny time to be doing this. Yeah, thank you, bluestork.
Yeah.
Mark and I were just discussing that not too far away from where we live, there's picketers going on outside of studios for the Writers Guild, so Writers Union.
Before I get to the next call, Kelby, you had like a thing you're gonna say, and then we never got back to it, right? What was it?
We could maybe it's maybe like a good like final question, like thought or something to remember.
Yeah, let's do it.
So.
Okay.
All right, Mark's gonna go grab the last caller. Again, thank you to everybody who subbed. I'm sorry I can't shout you all out right now. I this is the first show I think where I've ever failed to get the subs shouted out, but there's just too much going on, and I'm mesmerized by Kelby's beautiful background. You know, shout out to Kelby, by the way. Phil gets all this attention for corralling 50 plus players into a call. I got Kelby to leave Tears of the Kingdom to be on this show, and that might be as equally of a difficult task because this man has just been no-lifing that game for so long.
Yeah. We're like 120 hours in so far. That's pretty good.
Oh my god.
Fenron
Jenkins subbed earlier, by the way, and said, "God,
nice.
I love Kelby May." So that's the one sub I can shout out. Lord Nick is here. Lord Nick, where are you calling from?
Oh,
I'm calling from Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. What do you want to talk about on the show?
So the concept that I had was that instead of having folks watch the LCS, potentially having the players that are walking out do essentially a for fun scrim at the same time, playing against each other with whatever parts of their teams are there. Potentially, you know, showcase that you can still watch some organized play to a degree.
Yeah, so you're saying try to do something separate. Yeah, I mean, Phil, this kind of one, I guess we can start with that question of if that's something that would be something you guys would do. But I think, too, you know, when we had Vulcan on the show, it was somewhat unclear at the time what the players were going to do. He mentioned scrimming, though, from my understanding, there's, again, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard from folks that potentially there's legal issues with doing something that seems like work or could be construed as work during a walkout. So, I mean, yeah, I guess starting with the idea of a stream, any idea what you guys will have the players do, if anything, on Thursday? Should negotiations not go well?
Yeah, I appreciate that because, first and foremost, we would like negotiations to go well. We would like everyone to be playing on Thursday. I'm going to always leave that as the disclaimer. If you could put it on the top of my part of my broadcast, you know, disclaimer, everything's said with that intent. Yeah, if we get to a walkout, we've absolutely had conversations about using online platforms to, you know, if they do decide to run a broadcast, to redirect messaging in some other way. You are in many ways, and I'm not a lawyer either, but you're in many ways right, Travis, that when you are denying labor, you have to deny labor fully. You can't do half the job and they are professional League of Legends players. So, streaming themselves playing in-house League of Legends against each other is probably not something that we'll be looking at specifically. I think streaming is certainly still an open conversation potentially, or having people co-streaming players doing something else for fun. Those are all conversations that are kind of being had right now. Let us know your ideas. Again, we're a small organization. We are the scrappy upstarts, as Kelby pointed out. At the start of the movie, Kelby starts out and says, "There's no way, don't take the job," and all that jazz, right? So we
Phil's
take all
already
ideas and all
writing his
comers.
script.
Yeah,
He's
I love
already
movies. It's all a script in my head.
I would happily
But
play.
I support the WGA, so I'm not writing right now. Okay, this is not a spec script. Do not give this to the AI bots.
Oh God, we were joking
Solidarity.
about how perfect this is for Players Season 2 because there's a writer strike going on, and then like there's a game walkout thing. Like this just writes itself for Hollywood to come back and write Players Season 2 about the walkout.
I want, Phil, you to know that if any players want to play Magic the Gathering with me on Thursday, I am more than willing
Oh my God.
to.
You need to cover
that
it. You
content.
can't. You need to
Nobody
cover
wanna-
it.
Well,
Nobody
no.
wants to watch
Here's
you
the
play
challenge.
Magic.
I would be very surprised. I mean, I think it's very, in one sense, goofy or hypocritical of them to try to pretend that Thursday is a normal day of LCS, but then not invite media to cover it. That being said, I'd be really surprised if they're letting media into the press room on Thursday and allowing us to interview Joe Schmo and his 4 buddies who have signed for free
But don't-
vouchers to the local Sizzler.
Just show up outside and film it from the outside. And then when the players how are they going to they got to get out of the building. Just be like, hey, what do you think of your first day of the LCS?
But
Driving
you-
away in the
Day 2?
Toyota
You think
herself.
you
So
can
I
win
think
title?
the only
What do you
way.
think? You going to Worlds?
We carpooled here.
No, he turns his
We gotta
Uber
get
light.
back to
My
our
mom's
ship.
picking me
He
up.
turns his Uber light on and goes back to driving his route. So
I think the challenge is, Mark, if you think about it, if they're parking in the garage, I can't go onto Riot property. They could
You're
do
on the
something.
sidewalk.
So I have to be on the sidewalk, but the players don't need to go to the sidewalk in order to leave. They can just go to the garage and exit. So I've thought about stuff before involving this type
Do you
of
think
thing.
any of
They're
the scabs are like trying to pass up a Travis Gafford interview? They're fucking dreaming of this.
somebody's gonna drop Travis in the garage thinking he's gonna rob them because they're not gonna know who he is. They're gonna be random people from the street.
This is how we solve our employment problem in Los Angeles.
Get away
Okay.
from my car.
But Phil, I guess a follow-up question to there's been a lot of community suggested ideas. Some of them I've seen have involved trolling on stage, kind of like soft inting, because this is what League players are so good at, is finding ways to not get banned by the system, but still express their emotions in that moment. Is this something that players are talking about? Is this I don't know the rules of the walkout. I've heard a lot of things in recent week or days, excuse me, if somehow you guys are back on stage, but things haven't been settled yet, are players going to continue? Is that a possibility? I don't know how far along the conversations that has gotten.
Yeah, I appreciate all the community ideas and comments. Again, the really smart ones are very helpful, and we will crowdsource anything that'll help the cause. Those ones are also just they help my soul, because it's a soul crushing piece of work for most of the time right now. And so when I read a comment that's what if all the players just agreed to walk around and not do anything so the game never ended, they just filibuster the game, is my favorite idea ever that there's no chance we would ever do, but I love reading it and just dreaming about it. So I think whoever came up with that idea, it's great.
You're experimenting with the meta, as far as I can tell.
Yeah,
as an expert on the game, I wouldn't be able to distinguish that from high level play.
I really hope if that ends up happening, that Mark ends up on the cast for that game, so that he's just I get to call him in to my stream, but he's just sitting there still casting hour 10 of the filibuster. Either way, all right.
Can I say one thing though?
Yes.
But to that point, that's not going to happen. And one of the big reasons it's not going to happen is because our players have a lot of respect for the game, and they go out and they want to compete and they want to give their hardest. A lot of players talk to me candidly about they were on the fence about doing this. They believed in the idea, but they also believe that they had a duty to play and they want to compete in their competitor, and it's in their nature, right? And they're not going to go on stage and int because that would be disrespecting the game. Now, on the flip side, the reports you're sharing tonight and what we've seen with the scab stuff, I think clearly shows that one side of this conversation is not respecting the game and the league. They are actively doing things that will put out a product that is a joke. And like, that's a real shame, because it's fun to talk about the silly things and do that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, we're all trying to watch real professional League of Legends players and like compete and trying to win. And I thought until a couple weeks ago, Riot cared about that too. And now I'm questioning it tonight, and that makes me really sad. So, yeah.
Hey, thanks so much, Lord Nick, for the call. Anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I just want to shout out DreamHack Dallas. I'm going to be there, and if
I will see you
folks
there.
want, there's going to be collegiate.
What are you going
games
to DreamHack Dallas for, Travis? There's no league there.
No, I play
Magic the
a
Gathering.
collectible card game that Mark gets offended by me discussing. So, hey, Nick, are you going to be there to play that collectible card game?
When I am not playing Omega Strikers. Battle
Oh, you
for
were in my
Texas.
chat earlier. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Well,
I'll be
hopefully
there
we
for
can
that.
get a commander game in, but
That
yeah.
would be the hope. Yeah.
This is my shout out, by the way. Come say hi to me in Dallas if you guys are there. All right, cool. And at Command Fest Anaheim. Hey, thanks, Lord Nick. Mark is, what is that, Mark?
Wait.
If you're just gonna keep talking about your little passion project, I'll just keep talking about Dark Souls anytime you start doing it. Like, I love Miyazaki and FromSoft. Like, I have their Design Works book here. It's full of great artwork. Next time you start talking about Magic again, pull it back out every time.
Lord Nick, thank you so much for the call. We'll catch you next time.
That doesn't
Thanks,
seem like an
guys.
effective deterrent. You
No, it
like
doesn't.
quietly leafing through pages, but
It does.
No, I'll start just monologuing.
yeah,
as
keep
he goes.
workshopping it.
Yeah. Listen, Phil can help you on.
Phil is the great about disrupting other people's plans. So yeah, I can use the advice.
All right, Kelby, we're over time, but open up to your final conversation piece.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you guys have any insider guesses as to why Riot is pushing for continuing the broadcast this week. It seems like historically to me, there have been situations in which there has been public outcry that has been like so all on one side in favor, and Riot has listened and acquiesced and understood and been like, okay, we hear your feedback, and as a result, we're making this change or something. This is from the players, this is from the community, and yet they just like are pushing forward with this, it seems, and doing so in a way that I think is completely fair, as Phil has stated, that like is creating a joke and mockery of their premium product. I'm curious as to why we think Riot is being so adamant about this path and unwilling to come back to the table, it feels like.
I wish I knew. This is what I've been saying this whole time. Like, I laugh because it is wild. Like,
but there has to be something.
So here, can you address this, Kel? Because I've seen this pop up. This is what the community seems to speculate. Rathacon says probably sponsors, but a pressure to bring the sponsors back. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, they have sponsor obligations, so they have to do it. They have to start the tournament. You work with sponsors all the time. Like, can you clarify why that's probably not a thing?
Yeah, because like you have to do so in the manner in which you presented to your partner, right? Like, so if I'm saying we are going to be broadcasting professional League of Legends, like no sponsor is going to look at the scabs going out on stage and being like, oh, Riot, you're delivering here what we expected. No, this is like a completely inferior product for what they signed up for. The viewership, the sentiment, nothing around this is going to be strong. So like no sponsor is going to be like, oh, great, you've like sated my concerns here. You're still going to have sponsor problems putting out this product.
So that one's off the table. Next idea.
So I don't know for sure, obviously. My two guesses, like throwing out that sponsor one, would be one, like, I'm not a negotiator. I'm pretty actually shit at negotiations, honestly, but like potentially a negotiation tactic or something to just like steamroll the players in this sense where, like, you know, you're kind of calling what you think is a bluff. Players say they're going to walk out. Maybe they even do walk out for one day, but you get this scab situation to just like still force the product onwards. And then Like,
Oh, wouldn't you just delay like you could just delay LCS. You don't need to like put something out that diminishes your brand, right? And you're getting the same sort of leverage in that situation, I would think.
Personally, like, yeah, I agree. Like, there's been times where the LCS had to cancel a show because of technical issues or something, and like, you know, I assume, you know, like you will have to eat some sunk cost on whatever you were planning for opening day. It sounds like, you know, there was a lot of stuff, and so like there's a cost associated with canceling that day that maybe they're trying to avoid. And
like,
so like
honestly,
maybe that's.
I think doing a scab product gives more leverage to the LCSPA. Like you are going to drive sentiment in the community even stronger in their direction when you put this out, as opposed to just not doing it. At least in my mind.
That's why nothing makes sense. The strategy here is so fucking confusing. I don't understand any of it. It's been blowing my mind.
I'm saying these things not as a believer in them.
Yeah.
Phil, devil's advocate. Why would Riot Games
argue against your own
do
point?
this?
Give Riot the give us some insight.
I've lost countless hours of sleep since this whole thing began, wondering this exact question. I ponder it endlessly. Like, why would they do this when they did it and how they're doing it? And honestly, the only rational thing that I have come up with is that this is the first time in the history of the league, to my knowledge, that there is no commissioner. And there was, for a very long period, always someone whose name was associated with the product and accountable for it. And people took them to task all the time for things they didn't like about the product. And guess what? When you're in charge of product and people take you to task, you care about your reputation and you care about how those changes reflect on you. And so every time in the last 2 years that somebody came up and said, let's kill the Academy League or let's kill NECL, I got to talk to the person who was responsible for the product. And they would say, you know what, there's a lot of reasons to do this, but at the end of the day, I can see that the balance does not weigh in our favor. And reputationally, it is too harmful despite the cost savings or whatever positive reasons I could put on my resume might be. It will harm me reputationally. Right now, there's no commissioner. And so I believe that creates a vacuum between these two splits. There's no commissioner, and it was an opportunity for someone to say, I can put this on my resume. I'm not going to get it hung on me as the person who did it, because there's no one to hang it on very clearly. We have guesses, we have names, but there's not one person that is so obviously in charge of this. But at the end of the day, a bunch of people are going to put it on their resume and they're going to claim, I saved X dollars on the bottom line for the company, give me a bigger bonus. And hire me for this job because I knew how to get to a better ROI. And they're all going to, be ignoring the fact that they killed the future of development in the league. And they don't care because it's not their name on the buck stops here.
It's just odd to me because the scandal is going to eclipse the esports division of Riot, right? Like, if you are on corp comms, for instance, or on the corporate brand side of Riot Games, you just settled a giant fucking lawsuit with the state of California for some pretty stupid, bad shit. Like, and now you have like players walking out, allegations of Riot changing rule sets for scabs. Like, I don't understand how this is going to allow people internally to have any like, this is only going to be bad news for them. When they do their fucking yearly review, it's going to be like, what did you think you failed on? Well, causing a giant clusterfuck. And again, like, I'm hoping that this stuff starts to break out to other media. Like, I saw The Verge covered it. I'm hoping that it starts to transcend this. And it seems like it should be well suited amongst all the conversation around the other strikes that are going on, all that stuff. Like, I'm hoping it gets to that point because, like, this is going to exit the small little bubble of conversation that's in, and it's going to have such lasting effects that, like, Nicolo, the Frenchman, who, France is no stranger to the idea of labor action, like, this has got to be on his radar at this point in time because it's no longer going to be about the LCS. It's going to be about Riot and how they're approaching this and the scab stuff and all that, Like, I don't get it. None of it makes sense to me, and it's confusing me, and I'm just so lost.
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, for my 2 cents, why not pushing a day or whatever? You know, I don't again know exactly the full extent of what the ramifications of the walkout are, but like a day or a weekend and like tagging these days onto other days or like something like that in the future, it will cause costs. Like I think at the end of the day, a lot of things on a business level just come down to cost. So like there's going to be costs to moving the days, costs to like, you know.
Yeah, but they're saving all that money
booking.
now, going from 16 to 10 teams in the NACL.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Riot still already wrote the checks to the teams, so like they haven't saved any money, and
just on
no
production
offense,
of those broadcasts. I mean,
yeah, I'm saying like so like you haven't saved any money by killing Academy. Like Riot hasn't saved money by killing Academy. They're still doing a broadcast. Like there is still the NACL. You know, like just because like it's just the teams who are saving money. Riot will then have to pay more money to move all these days and stuff like that, and then Phil and the Players Association want things in their negotiations, which will cost them more money, and so like. Riot is staring down the barrel of I don't fucking know how much money to deal with this situation currently, and I think maybe it's just like heads down, bull through it is like their philosophy.
But to your tweet, how much money are they going to fucking lose when these sponsors are like, I'm out, you know? Or
yeah, I don't know, but like this is the only like if I was going to guess, like someone's got a checkbook and they're looking at like some of these numbers and they're like, yeah, fuck that shit.
I mean,
you know,
one of the
like,
things I was thinking about earlier is, and I know we got to wrap up, but like one of the things I was thinking about earlier is like the irony of LCS teams who want to probably sell their spot, want to get the NACL costs off of their books so that they can present to whoever like, oh, you know, if you buy our company, we're operating at this amount, and now we've shaved 600,000 according to them off. How much fucking brand value are you losing in your LCS slot, or rather, I guess like the potential value by the bad reputation? Like, how many? Like, this has got to lower the value because people are going to be looking at this and being like, it's a goddamn circus. And so your slot that was previously worth maybe 20 million, according to this New York Times article about the TSM stuff, like you're shaving potentially billions of dollars off of the value of this thing because it's like such a clusterfuck, and it's all to save 600 grand a year. Like it's. Ugh.
Well, and like because this is starting up some of the conversation I've seen a lot. It's like this is a short-term thing because as we talked about with Phil, like Academy was probably going to die or change in some capacity in the near future anyways. So like it was a 3-month short-term cut on like your budget that you can save money on. And we say brand value and people assume we mean like angry hashtags, but we, as Kelby can attest, are talking about like negotiation rates with your sponsors and make goods and like all these other like real tangible effects that this is going to create. So like when we say brand value, we're not talking about like, do people like you or not like you when you show a logo of your product to them. We mean like, you know, is viewership hurt in a tangible way long term? Is the development of your ecosystem and your players hurt in a long term? Is your sponsorships going to sell at a lower rate long term? Like these are the brand value damages that we mean for this short term, roughly only 300,000. You say 600,000, but that's for the full year. This is a couple months, and it was probably dead at the end of this year anyways, and probably coming off your books. So you know, like I don't know.
Any sponsor who doesn't feel great about their investment in the League of Legends ecosystem right now has the perfect point to point at their agreement and say, like, this is breach of contract. You're not providing what you expected here, and like we're out.
Okay. I guess that's where we can end stuff. I think, you know, the last thing I'll leave on before we do shout outs is I've just been thinking all day about the, you know, is it the kids that are out of touch or is it meme? And like, I have to wonder if, you know, I just want somebody at Riot to be like, is it the players and the fans and the media and the everybody else that are out of touch, or is it us and the owners? And, you know, I don't get it. All right. Anyway, let's wrap up the show. Mark, what do you want to shout out and plug?
Shout out. There's a show on Netflix called Love House, and it's like simultaneously one of the worst made shows I've seen, but with a good enough concept that it still works. And like the editing's really bad and the sound mixing's really bad. But I'm watching it with Ashley and we're having a good time. Yep. I don't think there's anything else going on worth shouting out, you know.
Wait, I just realized something. Maker in the chat said you need to get Hassan to cover this. I know somebody else who likes to create YouTube videos and cover stuff. His name is Moist Critical. If anybody out there has some into Moist Critical, because he did a great video about the Wizards of the Coast Magic situation with Magic 30 and other stuff, like maybe they could plug this to him. Just a general idea.
Sounds like a
You
good
get the
topic for
Socialist
Mogul
on.
Mail.
Mogul Mail would be great for it. One of Charlie's many just random fucking videos. And then you get Phil on the Hassan show to just spew leftist bullshit.
Yeah.
The fuck?
Oh, okay.
And the masks are off here at 9:15.
All right.
Well, it's past my bedtime. The truth is coming out.
Kelby, what do you want to shout out and plug?
Shout out Tears of the Kingdom. Also very excited for Final Fantasy 16 release. It's going to be a good year for games, aside from professional North American League of Legends. So,
Dude, Armored Core 6, Tears
Yeah.
of the Kingdom, Diablo 4, Final Fantasy 16. What the fuck? It's a banger year.
Yeah,
We
but
haven't
everything that's been
started yet?
coming out other than Tears has been a disaster. Phil, what do you want to shout out?
Shout out 2 things. First off, you shout out a show, so I'll shout out a better show, Jury Duty, which if you haven't watched, you should be watching. It's on Freevee. It's literally free. That show actually rips. So go watch that. It'll also give you faith in humanity that you've
I've seen
lost
so many
in
Twitter clips or
engaging in this
TikTok
content.
clips of it.
It's so fucking good. It's the best thing. So go watch that. It'll restore your faith in humanity that you lost watching this show tonight and engaging in the league ecosystem the last 2 weeks. So do that. And second, I want to give a shout out to all of our players, because Kelby gave me a lot of flowers, but I did believe in the players, and I've long stood by the idea that you meet players where they're at, and they care, and they want to be successful, and they want things to work, and you just have to find them and get through to them, and they will use the tools at their disposal. So I give all the credit to them. They're the ones who are making history, not me. I'm just the dude who shows up on the podcast sometimes. So all the credit to them. It's their power, it's their risk. So
Very, very noble of you. I thought for sure when you said show, you were going to shout out Survivor, which would start you and Mark talking about how you're both obsessed with Survivor, though him not nearly as much as you.
It's always a good time to get in.
Yeah.
I've watched most seasons.
You know, Phil is like a Survivor addict. He's a fiend on it. He like live tweets it and stuff like that. He's a crazy person.
He tweets about it.
I said
sociopath.
I tweet a lot about it.
Yeah, Travis doesn't
Do I?
tweet about anything else. You know,
Yeah.
sure.
Also, shout out to Big Angry Hobo for gifting us out to Moist Critical. Maybe he'll stumble upon this stream and watch the 2 hours of the VOD and decide to make a video out of it. Big Angry Hobo, if that happens, that's all on you. Well, thank you so much to Phil for coming on. It's been a wild ride, and things keep happening. I will say that I just got an email that my PR contact that I emailed yesterday at Riot was out of the office, and did not see the email until just now while I was doing the show. So we'll see if I get some sort of update. I am supposedly going to Asset Day tomorrow and interviewing Golden Guardians, Cloud9 players, and a couple others on Makeup Day. So I guess I'll be there. You can look forward to that content.
See you there, buddy.
It's such a weird fucking world. Stick around on stream because I'm going to hang out for a while as I always do. But thanks everyone for showing up, and we'll catch you next Highlight League, which will almost certainly be another banger.